yes, I am Stef Robinson. I'm a director of real estate strategy for Panera Bread out of St. Louis. I have 2 degrees in geography, bachelor from a little school in Birmingham called Samford, and then I got my master's in Tuscaloosa at the University of Alabama, and then I got out of the South. Okay, so started at Thompson Associates, which is was a site selection consulting firm in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and then I jumped to Panera Bread, and it'll be 16 years next month that I've been there. So it's a long time. We got old, man. We did, yeah. Okay, so what about me that's fun? I love hard cider. Anybody a hard cider fan? No, maybe you guys aren't even 21. I didn't think about that, never mind. Love the national parks. I know you were just in Shenandoah. I've been to 49 of the 63, so we gotta finish that out. Been to all 50 states, and then love to golf and hike and do CrossFit, but I also love to eat and drink. So that's why you don't see that. Okay, what's next? Okay, so Panera Bread, we have, at the end of this year, we will have just under 2,200 units. When I started back in 2006, you can see there, it's just over 1,000. So I've seen a lot of stores open, a lot of things go right, a few things that went wrong. Yeah, so we're still growing. You can see how things have kind of flattened out. Lots of reasons for that. COVID was a big one, and construction costs and economics for us have been really hard. Labor rates have increased, and so I'm starting to answer your question already. But you can see how things have kind of flattened out, but we have 3 and 4% growth promised to our parent company the next couple of years, so got to get on that. But, okay, so economic geography. We have about 100 different markets across the US and Canada. About half of them are franchised. For us, you can't, like, I know like Dairy Queens and McDonald's, you can have like a franchisee can own 1 unit. I think Chick-fil-A operators own 1 unit. Our franchisees own a market, right? So it's all of Boston is a franchisee, all of San Francisco is a franchisee, right? So we have these markets that we look at. And inside those markets are what we call trade areas, right? So these are areas of influence where we're looking to put stores, basically. So these trade areas can be large, they can be small, and that depends on the density of the area, the market. Oh, there's a map. We've got an early map here. Okay, friction of distance. You guys have covered that, right? Anyone? Thank you. Okay, so this is a map, obviously, of Chicago. And how we look at our trade area sizes are based on these density classes, right? So if you're in super urban, I don't know if you guys have been to downtown Chicago in the Loop, right? Your trade area might be a couple blocks wide, right? Whereas if you're out in a smaller town, your trade area might be 10 miles around, right? 15-minute drive time, something like that. So the sizes of the trade areas change with density. They change with the presence of sister stores. Obviously, that trade area is going to stop if it runs up against another cafe. So you don't need to know those numbers. You're not going to be tested on that, but that's how we kind of figure out these density classes. So any questions on that? It's a pretty map though, isn't it? Okay. So we have different channels. How many of you guys have been to Panera? Most of you? Okay, very good. Thank you for your business. So we have a bunch of different channels, right? You can come in and you can eat there. You can pick it up to go. You can, in some cases, go through a drive-through. In most cases, you can get it delivered. And in most cases, you can put a catering order in. So each of these channels kind of has its own extent from a trade area perspective, right? So if you're going to come in and get your stuff and go, it's probably going to be a little bit tighter because you want to get home or back to work or whatever. The drive-through makes it a little bit more convenient, so those are a little bit bigger. So, and then catering we don't even talk about. But anyway, so each channel kind of has its own trade area, which is helps us kind of figure out how many, where can we fit in a store, or is it going to impact other stores too much because we're shrinking the trade areas, and is there going to be enough sales to support that? Okay. I believe you guys had someone in here talking about cell phone data not too long ago. We also use, I call it creepy cell phone data because it is creepy to me, but I don't know how that gentleman was using it. I can't remember. Scott, you told me, but I don't remember. But for us, if you're coming into Panera, you're in line or you're at the kiosk, you check your phone, whatever, it pings, right? It pings to the gods. And so we know that you were in Panera, right? We don't know that it was you, but we know that your device, and we don't know that it's your device, but a device was in Panera, right? We also know that that device was somewhere an hour before and an hour after, so we can understand that data. I know, it's creepy. Yeah, I know. So we can understand what those patterns look like, right? And we also, this gets creepier. Again, we know where that device sits during the day, which is probably your work location. Probably doesn't, maybe for students it's a little bit different. And then we also know where that night resting place is, which is probably your home, right? So again, this device, we don't know that it's attached to any one of you. We just know that the device was there. But once we understand where that device lives and works, we can kind of figure out if they're using that cafe how they're using that cafe. Is it right next to their house? Is it right next to their work? Is it somewhere in between? Is it by a shopping node? So this helps us figure out how big our trade areas are from a retail perspective. And when I say retail, it's everything except delivery and catering, right? So anytime you're using the store, driving in, dining in, picking something up, those are retail sales. So this helps us figure that piece of it out. So, and obviously geography will come into play. Maybe there's a river that will truncate this trade area. If it's not by a bridge, it's not going over. There's a lot of stuff that plays into this. Psychological barriers, right? I know I'm getting a little old, but Eminem's 8 Mile, it's a real thing. So it cuts things off, right? Any questions about this creepy cell phone data? You want to know more? I want to know more. No one wants to know more. Okay. What?
That's very valuable data, so you might not be able to answer, but would you possibly sell it to other companies to make profit?
So we don't even collect it. We are partnering with a vendor who is the one collecting it. So we cannot have that type of information because the vendor knows that it's yourself. I don't know why I'm picking on you, probably because you're right here. The vendors know what those numbers are attached to. We just are able to use the data. So they're selling it, we're paying for it, right? So yeah, it's definitely a thing. And I want to say there's probably a lot more companies than this, but the main ones that I know of there's like 3 or 4 like major vendors for this type of information. And yeah, trust me, they're making money on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So kind of going off that, is this like, I guess, where do people give access to that they're able to give it to vendors so that you can access this data?
So
is there any way you can be like, no, I don't want to share this?
I think you can turn it off on your phone. But I'm not exactly sure how to do that. I just figured out how to turn my do not disturb on. So I don't know how you get rid of that. But yes, I think, and like I said, it's anonymized. Write that down, anonymized. So nobody who's getting this data has any idea, again, who it is. It's not you, it's over here. Yeah.
So where are these vendors getting the data then? Am I purchasing something from someone else and they're getting it and then sending it to the vendor, which then you're buying it from? Or
So I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I think what's happening is that these vendors are buying this from the cell phone companies, and maybe the cell phone companies themselves are the ones that are anonymizing it. But yes, it's all cell data from Brandt, Verizon, whomever. So, yep. Okay. And then, so these are the trade areas, again, for retail. We have catering addresses. So anytime you put in a catering order, we have that address where it was delivered. So we have a much better, clearer understanding of the catering side. On the delivery side, we have, internal to Panera, we have boundaries that kind of say, hey, this store is going to go out, at this polygon. The next store over, it looks like this. The problem for us is that, like the DoorDashes and things like that, we don't get that data. If you order on our app or on our website, we get that data. But if you order through DoorDash or that, we don't. And they don't give their information out to anyone. So we are assuming that the people using the app look the same as the folks that are using DoorDash, but intuitively, DoorDash, I think, skews younger and everything else. So we think those boundaries are probably a little bit different, but we don't have any way to test it. So that's kind of a frustrating thing. So, okay. Oh my God, I'm 11 minutes in. We're so behind. This is the delivery and catering piece right here. Look at that. Look at those boundaries. Okay. Okay, so when we're looking at trade areas and evaluating them, we're looking for activity, right? We need things to be happening to be able to put a store there, right? We need a population base, right? We need a worker base, which I will talk about in a little bit, which looks a lot different than it used to. Shopping, right? How can we take advantage of these shopping nodes that are bringing people to an area, right? That's the activity. And the other piece is, which is, schools, freeways, hospitals, anything that's bringing people to an area, right? Could be a sports park. I know those are up and coming right now, these huge sports parks with 15, 20 soccer fields and whatnot. But all of those pieces come together, right? We want as many of these as we possibly can because, like you see on that stool, work, right? COVID was a perfect example for us, right? We have a couple trade areas that were super, super focused on office, right? And when COVID hit, those stores, obviously plummeted. And I'm still working from home 3 years later, right? So these office parks have not returned to where they were, even though the companies themselves might still be in these offices. Folks are maybe coming in once a week, twice a week. It's not 5 days anymore, right? So that whole leg of that stool broke out from under a bunch of our trade areas, but the ones that had the other backup were okay, right? They found a way to get through that and pick up those lost sales, whereas, this is the worker, these work dependent trade areas here, we just whipped that right out from under them, right? So that's problematic. So were the rolled jeans probably, but okay. So digging a little bit deeper into that, what are we looking for on the residential side? So we want a decent amount of density, right? We need enough people to be in the area, to be in the trade area to support a store. And that looks different, again, based on density. And the more people that we have closer to that cafe, the better off we are, right? The closer they are, the more frequent they will come by, in theory, right? That's probably another economic geography theory that I can't remember the name of, but okay. Then we also look at demographics. So remember, we have that cell data, right? This is your home, right? Again, we don't know that it's your house or that house, but we know where that dot lies, so we can extract the likely demographic information from those home addresses, right? So that gives us the ability to kind of understand who our customer is. So right now we're actually going through a huge model build from scratch. So we're collecting that cell phone data for all of our cafes. And we have a vendor helping us because it would be way too much for the four of us to do. But they are taking all of our data, sales data, transaction data, the cell phone data, and they're running a ton of statistical analyses on it to help us understand our customer profile, right? Have our trade areas expanded or contracted with COVID? What is our profile look like now, right? Is it younger now that it's more digital, right? So there's so many questions, but that is where we are right now, is running through that whole process. And it's something we do about every 5 years. So it's a big undertaking with data and everything else, making sure, they have all of our store data, all kinds of stuff. So there's so much that goes into it. But so we're looking at demographics. And have you guys heard of psychographics? Do you guys segmentation? Okay, so this lifestyle index. So we have demographics, right? You guys know them from the census, right? You've got income, you've got family size, things like that. Psychographics it's like taking them a step further and blending them with behavioral data, right? Like it used to be, God, I sound old. Used to be what magazines do you take and where do you shop, things like that. But it's like a culmination. It's bringing together demographics, it's bringing together shopping patterns, family sizes, things like urbanicity into these clever little groupings where the famous one was shotguns and pickup trucks, right? Like you instantly have an idea in your head of who these shotguns and pickup trucks, what demographic that represents and what that family might represent, right? So we also look at that compilation of demographics and psychographics to understand our customers. So workers, we kind of just touched on this, but again, the more workers we have closer to the store, the better off we are. Again, we're trying to figure this out. This is one of the most important things that's going to come out of this model is how do we look at work areas now, right? Again, it's not the 5-day, I don't want to call them cash cows, but the 5-day, bump that we would typically see. How do we handle that, right? Like these, what do we need to do to get that business back, or do we need to stop looking or think about differently these trade areas to put maybe smaller stores or all digital stores where, we're not making this big investment for these office types, but we can still serve it. Maybe it just looks different than, what we've been looking at. Okay, retail. That's another thing that's completely changed since I've been at Panera. So, before we would put them outside of regional malls and, we're basically making sure that there was some shopping component to that. You guys probably made an Amazon order this week for something, I'm guessing. So the whole brick and mortar stores have kind of lost that pull to some extent. Now, Target, right? Like Target's crazy every time I walk in there. So we still have a positive vibe with retail. It's just not as important as it used to be, right? So, and again, it's all about the activity generators, right? You might have a mall behind you that's been dead for years, but you might be on a road that has 50,000 cars a day. It doesn't matter what's behind you because you have all these people passing in front. As long as they can get to you, it's activity, right? So we got to figure out what we're doing here. Post-COVID, obviously, grocery stores, daily needs have become way more important. And so we're looking, again, at, more neighborhood trade areas, if you will. So that kind of grocery anchored versus a regional mall or like a Target, Kohl's, Walmart kind of center, right? So we'll see how that works. And then we kind of talked about that. Colleges, even though we're expensive, you guys seem to, college students seem to be a positive generator for us. Hospitals are huge based on the number of employees. So obviously the bigger campuses are more important to us than like a tiny, maybe a local hospital. Hotels are a positive, freeways are a positive. Basically anything that's bringing people to the trade area, right? So any questions? That was a lot. How's my time? I know how to use my phone. I don't know why I'm not doing it today. Okay, so all of these things come together to give what we call trade area potential, right? These are the amount of sales that we feel like we can get from this trade area. What also factors into that are the number of sister stores that are around it, right? If you're surrounded by other Paneras and you're trying to put one in the middle, that's going to truncate that trade area, right? Because you're not going to pull past a sister store. And then competition as well. Competition is one of the hardest things we deal with to measure. Sometimes, being early into a new trade area, it's good to be first in, but you can't go in too early before the population gets there, right? So it's a very fine line of when do you come in, and if you wait and everybody else is already there, you're behind the 8 ball now, and you've got to earn that business and pull it away from those existing other food places. So that's where, so you got the potential, sister stores eat into it, competition eats into it. What else would eat into this trade area potential? Any ideas? It's not a...
What do you think? Trying to think of something. I don't know.
All right. Anybody? It's okay. Oh, damn, we're gonna skip that. That was that lifestyle index thing. Oh, okay, we'll come back to that question. Okay, so when we're evaluating these trade areas, we basically have this big old spreadsheet of all these demographics and the retail pieces and the worker numbers, distance to sister stores, everything else, and it all goes into this magic formula that's weighted, and we assign it an A, B, C, D, or E, right? So it's what we call a risk assessment. We give it a grade. What we've found over the years is that the A's do better than the B's, and the B's do better than the C's, and so on and so forth, right? So you can see, the average for the A's on the company side at this point was like $59,000 a week, and the E's were at like 46, right? So that's a pretty big drop off, right? So, maybe there's not enough population. There's all kinds of stuff that can go into this. So this is a quick way for us to kind of evaluate a trade area and say, yeah, this is an A. We need to be here. Here's why. Doesn't mean that we can't go into a D or an E, but there's definitely risk to the right side of, of this graph. So, but yeah, it's just a quick way for us to look at that. So we've got this trade area. We think we want to put in a site. What else do we think about? Oh, here's that. Okay, here's the, sorry guys, I'm jumping all over the place. Here's how this comes out, right? So we've got this letter grade over here, the A, B's, C's, and D's. And then this is like what we have these market planning meetings where we go to all the different, I have one tomorrow in Allentown, where we meet with our local operators and our brokers and our real estate people. And we basically go through this document to say, hey, real estate people, where should we be looking? What trade areas are left? Where can we put in another Panera that we think will be successful, right? So that's tomorrow if anyone's in Allentown, come by. Okay, so we color code it so it's quick and easy to take a look at, like, ooh, where's the red? Why is it bad? So, okay. But it only tells half the story. And we don't know what the other part of the story is. Anthony didn't know, and I'm not holding it against you. It's all cool. Okay, this is my mom. She just got out of the hospital after 5 weeks. Go, Mom. We were in Switzerland in 2018, 2019, okay? Bucket list item for Ellie. She wants to see, oh my God, now I'm blanking on the mountain, the Matterhorn. Bucket list day. We get on this train to go to the top of the mountain. There's a woman sitting across from us. She's from Florida. We start yapping, right? What do you do? What do you do? I work for Panera Bread. Oh, Panera Bread. Now, usually when someone says that, I love X product. Why did you take away B product? Why don't I have a store near me in X place, right? This woman, dead on, says, is having shitty parking a requirement for Panera? That's what she thinks of Panera. It's not broccoli cheddar soup. It's not the scones, right? She can't park when she wants to come to Panera. Those are site characteristics, right? So we have a trade area potential and you can't get to the store, right? Let's say these are the positives, right? We need you to be able to get in and out of the cafe. We need you to not have to kill yourself trying to make a left-hand turn. We want a signal. We want a signal to get in, if possible, or at least a turn lane, right? We want you to have a place to park. I'm sorry, the people in Orlando don't have a place to park, but apparently they don't. Those are franchise cafes. I don't have anything to do with that. And you can see all of these other generators that are bringing people to this center, right? You got a Target, PetSmart, you've got a bunch of retail, right? Like this is the ultimate right here. These are fantastic site characteristics. You can see us from this main road, right? Like if you can't see me, how are you gonna pop in for a sandwich, right? So this is fantastic. Now, when we go back to those grades, right? I can have an A trade area with fantastic demographics, all kinds of room with sister stores. We should absolutely put a cafe here. Okay. We have one of those trade areas in California. Tons of retail around us, but the franchisee, no, the trade area, all kinds of office, all kinds of retail, fantastic demographics, right off a freeway. We got hotels, we got all kinds of stuff here, right? It's an A trade area all day long. But they chose to go in, do you guys know what a lifestyle center is? It's kind of a fancy, it's not really a mall, but it's an open air kind of mall. And you can, like, there's not a whole lot of places to park, but it feels very downtowny. You can walk it, right? Retailers are doing terribly there because it's not convenient, right? So these folks decided to put themselves in a lifestyle center. The signage is terrible. There's no place to park besides a parking garage. And you can't see it from the road. No one knows they're there. It's one of the worst stores we have in the system, and it's an A trade area, right? So site characteristics matter. On the flip side, we have D's and E's, right? Out loud and proud sites overcomes a lot of, the demographics in that because people can see you. It's easy to use, so site characteristics matter. Any questions? I'm not checking my phone, I promise. I'm at 27 minutes. All right. Anything on this, guys? Nope? Okay. What next? Okay. Yeah, so we take that site quality. If it's great, that trade area potential probably goes up a little bit. If the site characteristics are trash, we knock that sales forecast, okay? Because, like I said, they matter. Okay. Cannibalization. Does anyone know what that is? Besides the folks that are reading the sign already?
I'm guessing it's like one store gets more business than another store that's close to each other.
Not quite, but a great guess. Smurf, you got a guess? No? Okay, all right. So cannibalization is when you open a new store and it takes away sales from an existing store. You were close. I'm gonna give you half credit there. Okay, half credit for Anthony, okay. Dr. D. Okay. It is not cannibalism. We have had people who put cannibalism in emails. There was a gentleman that I worked with probably for a decade that used the term cannibalism, and no matter how hard we tried, he could not get the difference between cannibalization and cannibalism. So anyway.
It's an important distinction.
It is, yes, it is, it is. Don't eat the sandwiches. No, I'm just kidding. So when we add another cafe in, it depends on how far away it is from other cafes. Also dependent on density, right? If I have a store in Manhattan and I open up one 3 blocks away, it may not touch that other store at all. But if I have a middle market, if I tried to put another store in Gettysburg, it would hammer the existing one because it's a middle market, smaller town. If I tried to add that in, even at 5 or 6 miles, it would just split the whole market, right? So it would crush that existing store. Okay, so we were talking about those trade areas, right? This is before and after the pandemic. So the before the pandemic is in blue, and then 2022 is in orange, right? So you can see how our dine-in, we've got drive-through cafes over here, none over here. You can see how much our dine-in has gone down since the pandemic, and the to-go has picked up, and the delivery is out of control, right? Delivery is one of the bigger parts of our business now when you combine it with kind of the catering. We call that off-premise, right? The other stuff was retail, that was kind of on-premise. This is all off-premise. So before the pandemic, Panera had delivery, but it was our own drivers, right? So we had Panera employees that were specifically hired to do delivery. And our drive times, they could go 8 minutes away, right? 8 minutes from the cafe. We're gonna get you your hot food, right? It's still gonna be hot. So we decided as a company, we can't go any further than 8 minutes, okay? The pandemic hits, we get crushed because everybody's getting delivery and people are complaining because they can't get it, right? So the company makes a decision to stop what we call cafe-based delivery, and it goes to DoorDash, right? DoorDash, Uber Eats, all the third-party folks. And again, remember, we can't control their boundaries, right? So these boundaries on their parts expanded, and then we were talking about the Panera app and the boundaries that we put together for our on our side. These boundaries are now like 10 miles for some of these cafes in a small market. It's 10 miles, right? I don't want food after it's been sitting in your car for 10 miles, but apparently people don't care. I don't understand it. Maybe you guys can explain it to me. I don't get it, but they're huge now. And what this did, I don't mean to point at you, I'm sorry, you're the cause of this. What this did is that these delivery boundaries expanded, and now there were no holes, right? So I've got a market where I've got 3 cafes, and suddenly these delivery areas are huge. Well, I could have put another store in there, but now if I do, I'm hitting this delivery from 3 other stores, which is cannibalization, which gets worked into the economics of the deal. And so sometimes that cannibalization is too much, or it's gonna hit one of these cafes and put them into the red to make them unprofitable. So that's bad, right? So it's been a challenge with these big boundaries, and so we're still working through that, right? We're not gonna change DoorDash, we're not gonna do any of that ever, but it's hard to justify some of these cafes because our operators, again, they're seeing these numbers that we're putting on for cannibalization and transfer, and they're like, don't open that store. That's gonna hit my cafe too hard. Well, we gotta grow the company, right? So where is that middle ground where that cannibalization is acceptable to get another flag in the ground to get incremental sales, right? That's kind of the question. Any questions on this? Okay, so I think what I'm gonna show you, hopefully it works, is what happened in Chicago from 2019 to 2023 with the delivery. And you can kind of see when stores open and stores close, kind of where these zones kind of ebb and flow, and how this is, why this is kind of hard to predict because of things. Not things, that's not even, oh, stop, wait. Okay, all right. Okay, so the yellow squares are existing cafes, and so you can kind of see how this goes month to month. I'm not sure what that red thing is that opened, but so you can see how that purple just exploded to the north, right? And then we just added that other red dot. So it took some of the purple dots and it's extending to the lake. And I think we're gonna have more open in a minute, but. I think we have another one opening. Yeah, so then we had one close. We had 2 closed, so you could see kind of where that purple dot, those purple dots just got really big, right? And you know the density looks like in Chicago, right? So I don't know how far these things are delivering, but it's too far. What's that? I can. So these are deliveries. These are delivery addresses. Yeah, so you can see how tiny this purple is right here. And then all of a sudden it's gonna kind of, you had some closures there, or not closures. So then it blew up. You saw it just blow up. That's when it switched from that 8-minute delivery to the expanded zones. And then we had something close, I think, coming up. Yep, that's, yeah, so that red dot over here to the left closed, and this store picked all of those sales up. Well, you know they're not picking all of them up, right? But that's who's serving that area. So, okay, I went through that really quickly. So, yay. So we have questions, right? Did anybody have questions about anything that I talked about?
With like the start of COVID, which you guys saw in your video of how the deliveries just expanded greatly. Have you ever considered having like not technically a restaurant, but a site that only caters towards deliveries, and then whereas they're kind of near a restaurant that does operate to the public, or would that just accelerate cannibalization?
If it wouldn't take me so long to get back and hug you, I would. But yes, we tried that. Yeah. Yes, we have what's called, we had 2 different things. One were called dark kitchens, right? These are the couple of the red squares that closed. I don't know if you remember those from the video. Those were dark kitchens, and that's exactly what you said. These were areas where delivery and catering only, and so there was no customers that were coming in, so it was just a storefront, right? We didn't need to make it look fancy. We didn't need to put in Panera colors. It was a kitchen, right? And they didn't quite perform like we thought they would, right? So that was a learning for us. Like, do we need that flag planted in the ground that people can see? And that is what is, they're on their way home. They're like, oh, Panera, you know what? I'm going to order that for dinner. Is that what it takes? Because, yeah, we have not had much luck with the dark kitchens. We opened a couple in New York, a couple in Chicago, a couple in Jersey, a couple in San Francisco. And I think we've closed maybe all but 2. So it just didn't work like we thought. And part of it, I think, is these damn delivery zones, right? Because they were holes.
Are you able to poll a higher density area to see if that is something they might be interested in, or is that just kind of inefficient or inefficient?
Polling, like focus groups.
Would you guys prefer this area to have a better means of catering towards Panera, through your customer kind of geofence you have? Would that ever be a possibility? Almost through your ads.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that, honestly. Because I think a lot of times I don't have a ton of experience on the marketing customer focus side, but I know a lot of times when you put something out there like, would you patronize this? People are always very quick to say yeah. And sometimes that doesn't happen, right? So these were a great idea, good on you, man. But they just didn't work for some reason. And again, I don't know if it's just that presence that we need to say, hey, we're here, right? But again, from a DoorDash perspective, you don't care where your food's coming from, right? Like, you just get on DoorDash and you order it and it shows up, right? So I'm not sure why these didn't click, but the economics to do these, because we didn't have to put money into them, they could be, C, D, E real estate, right? We didn't care. So it didn't cost us a lot to get them up and running, which means we could close them because they were tests. But we are also working now on what's called Panera to go, which is similar yet different in these high density areas where there's a little bit of parking. And it's basically a storefront, but it's the Panera colors. There's a kiosk in there that you can go in and order. You can pick up food, so it's customer facing, but there's no seats, right? So it's literally they're running delivery and pickup out of those. So they're 1,200, 1,500 square feet. yes, with a little bit of customer, little Panera green splashed in, right? But they're just in areas where customers could more easily use them and more visible to the outside world. So that was a great idea. Sorry it failed. No.
Logan question.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so we recently read an article about how we can learn valuable lessons from studying failed business strategies. Like the Blockbuster's now famous failure of
Mm-hmm.
So I guess can you share with us any lessons learned from a failed Panera, a different failed Panera Bread strategy?
You didn't like that one? Yes. I will tell you, should I tell you this? This is not from a site selection perspective, but as a brand, so we had the same ownership structure from the gentleman who founded Panera Bread. It's also called St. Louis Bread. We've got about 40 stores in St. Louis. And it was very much soup, salad, sandwich, right? That's our focus. And in the last 5 years, we've added flatbreads and chicken sandwiches and grain bowls. And it has really, even though our sales have been great, which leads into your question, they're not, they've kind of changed who we are. And in the coming months, we are going to have some menu changes because we realize that soup, salad, sandwich is really what we should be focused on and that we've strayed, right? And so we see the comps, right? Our comps are down, to be completely honest with you, because I think people do what you do and do it well, right? I didn't get that either. Okay. So yes, I'm not going to say those products were a failure, but it certainly was a learning for us to refocus, if you will. From a site selection standpoint, periodically we take chances, right? And those dark kitchens that we were talking about, we put one in one of the LA suburbs. And it was supposed to be a dark kitchen. And then, it's suburban. It's got parking. Can we just make this a Panera to go? Well, remember I told you they weren't great sites, right? So we have this terrible site that all of a sudden we're going to throw paint in and be like, oh, customers, come our way. And it's failing. Well, it's because it was never supposed to be that, right? And so there's little lessons periodically, right? We are focused right now on smaller footprints, right? So kind of what we talked about, what did we talk about a half an hour ago? Where we were looking at infill locations, I think. Maybe not, I don't know. But we're making them smaller, right? So bless you. So people can use them in a different way, right? You might not want to go hang out, sit down, get on your computer. You might just want to come in, get your stuff and go. So we can make these cafes a little bit smaller. Maybe they have 20 seats for a few people to sit down, but the main focus is going to be people, the delivery drivers, and you guys coming in for pickup, right? So our focus right now is to do these smaller stores. They're digital focused, which means there's no interaction with people. Now, that's probably okay for you guys because you're going to order on your phone, you're going to order on a kiosk. Ellie Robinson, who went to Switzerland, she wants a person, right? So we have to figure out who's coming to that cafe and how do we best serve them, right? So we've got 3 of these test cafes that have just opened within the last month, and just getting learnings from those. And it's got a digital drive-through, which means you put your order in. I know, I don't need your judgment. So you put your order in, you order on the app or whatnot, and you literally, it's like a Chipotle. I don't know if you guys have any of those, where you literally drive through the drive-through, pick your stuff up, right? But again, if I'm used to a drive-through and I pull up and there's no board, what am I doing? So there's definitely a big learning curve that our customers are going to have to get through for these new cafes. And our concern is I've got the app or I Google Panera. Okay, well, I show up at this cafe and I can sit down, I can have a meal. I show up at this cafe, there's no distinction, and I can't order with anybody, there's no drive, like, what is this? And so I think it's a concern, I'm being way too frank with you guys today. It's a concern of mine on moving forward, like, how do we get our customers to adapt to that? And I'm sure it'll work out, and we just keep testing, right? And everybody has to evolve. But that's our focus right now. So most of our cafes out there recently are 4,000, 4,200 square feet, have about 100 seats. What we're focused on now is about 2,400, 40 seats, digital. So we'll see where it goes. I don't know. But what else we got?
I'm next. And
Yes.
I think it's kind of already hit base.
Yes.
A lot that really goes into this one, but we're all pretty familiar with the Panera to Go program and how it reflects increased online consumerism. So, like, how has the change in consumer shopping habits changed the way that you and your team determine where to construct new Paneras? And does location still matter now that you have, like, third-party delivery companies?
I think we're good.
Yeah.
Who's next? No. Yeah, I do think I answered most of that. Yeah, the shopping still matters to some extent, right? We certainly wouldn't put it kind of out on its own, but it matters less depending on the prototype, right? So these Panera to-go's, we can put them in different smaller locations, maybe more dense locations where we couldn't get a drive-through or something like that, that's literally serving, especially in these higher density areas. I'm pointing as if there's a map here. These higher density areas, that's a perfect use for them. Would I put a Panera to-go in the suburbs? Just no. That's the one that we were just talking about in LA. It shouldn't have ever happened, but yeah, that's probably not the use for it there. But yeah, it's definitely changed our business. Definitely changed our business. So, okay. Hello.
So our last guest speaker introduced us to customer spotting maps, which are created using things like bonus cards and mobile apps, which are all connected to your address and can reveal your demographic information and shopping behaviors. So how does Panera Bread determine what kinds of customers are eating at its restaurants? In other words, how do you determine who to cater to?
Okay. So a lot of that is that the cell phone data that we use then for customer profiling. We do have a loyalty program. It's called My Panera. But the great thing about the cell phone data is that it doesn't matter where you are, we can get that data. The My Panera data, all we have is your home address. That doesn't help us, right? I have a cafe. When we were going to the office, there was a cafe right outside our office that we would hit multiple times a week. Doesn't matter what my home address is, right? That's not why I'm there. So there's still a lot of good data to be gathered from that home address. And, who has My Panera number? Anybody? Okay, you think so? Do you? Mechanicsburg. Okay, so yeah, so you're here now, so it might not matter, right? Like it's not relevant, right? So it's and you haven't changed your address. No one's changing their address, right? And so people move all the time. I've had this number for 15 years. I've never changed my address. It still thinks I live in Michigan, right? So we can't trust it as much as the cell phone data. Now, the limitation of the cell phone data is that we don't know what the spend is, right? Like we have this thing called the SIP Club where for a monthly fee, you can have unlimited drinks, right? Unlimited bubbler drinks and whatnot. You may your cell phone might ping and you just went in for your free monthly drink or your free daily drink or whatever. Someone else went in and bought dinner for 10, right? So we don't have that information on the cell piece, but we can use the cell piece and the home address to kind of to come up with those demographics and psychographics and kind of play them against each other to say, how is the My Panera different from what we're seeing on the cell phone data and why? So, cool? Yes. I'm always afraid someone's going to ask a question that I'm not going to know. Who's next? I know you have a question, but maybe it's not your turn. Oh, Anthony in the back.
You kind of went over this one too. It talks about like what cotenants are the most successful. You said like shopping areas, but now they're on decline because less people are shopping. So I guess I could just ask you a different question.
Do you feel like I answered the other one? Like, shopping's still important, but we would now much rather be with what we call daily needs. So the Walmarts, the Targets, even, to some extent, Lowe's and Home Depot, although there's a difference between the male and female customer, certainly. But yeah, so we definitely still want that activity, but, we don't want to be with a dying mall or, something like that, so. But you had another one?
Yeah, I think I got one.
Okay.
Just off the top of my head.
Oh, yay.
So, would you say like most of your issues stem from like not having enough data, or like you guys having problems like getting data, or more like the product of like what you guys are selling, or like kind of like, you know what I'm saying?
When you mean having issues, in what regard?
Not even like issues, but
Okay.
just like drawbacks to the company where you guys think you could be doing better. Do you think that's more like a retail thing, or more like you guys not having enough data?
I think we have a good bit of data. Again, our model is old, right? We should have refreshed this in 2021. But because of COVID, we put this off for 2 years because we needed to understand where is our business going to settle out, right? And we needed to get 2 more years of stable sales and, patterns that we could understand. Like, not gonna lie, I thought dine-in would come back. Dine-in has not come back, right? We've been cooped up in our houses. I want to eat out. I mean, maybe we don't want to go to Panera, but I want to eat out, and we didn't see it, right? Like, people are now, they're used to the delivery and everything else. So it totally changed our customer behavior. It really did. So that's why
The undergrad courses you took in college helpful to your career now? And with that, which ones did you think you were going to use but you don't? And then on the flip side, which classes did you think you would never use but do, if any?
Okay. So I'm going to be honest, I graduated from undergrad in 95. Some things have changed, right? So for me, GIS was just coming up, right? This was like a new thing for me in college. And in fact, I took a bunch of geography classes, but I didn't know what the hell I was going to do with it. And my senior year, second semester, I found a magazine. It was called Business Geographics, right? And it's no longer in publication, but it basically was applying economic geography, GIS, to business. And I was like, oh my God, that is what I want to do. So I had to go to grad school to, continue learning about it. But so that was brand new, right? This was not a thing, right? So I was thinking about, I took a bunch of cartography classes, and instead of all GIS, I mean, we were still, we were kicking it old school, and we're, was it vellum and stuff like that, and like it was all very manual, right? So I don't use any of that anymore. What classes? I do think, I'm not trying to be a homer here, but I do think our economic geography classes actually really did help me understand, like, it's silly stuff, right? That friction to distance, like, that's a thing. Like, it's a real thing, and it tells us how many cafes we can put somewhere, right? And so just kind of having those fundamentals for me, actually, like I use this stuff every day, right? Which is pretty cool, right? What else? I will tell you that I wish I used the GIS more than I do. We do a lot of the sales forecasting, a lot of math, a lot of Excel spreadsheets, and when we're making maps, it's a visual product for, like some of our operators. They're trying to understand, hey, I have this many cafes, I have 2 people running them. should I have 3 and what would that look like, right? So even though it's not, anything to do with sales or anything else, we're trying to help them with that and give them a visual. But I wish I did more mapping. I wish I did more of the GIS analysis, but it's not what we do that much in our department. I know like a Walgreens, we have a department of 4. I think Walgreens has a huge entire department, and they have a whole GIS section of that department that I don't know what all they do, but so yeah, I wish I had more of that, but is that good? Okay, cool. Who's next? Are you last?
Oh, I'm not on the list.
You're not on the list. You had a question.
You already answered it.
Did I?
Yeah.
Why are we so expensive?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, why are we so expensive? So part of why we're so expensive is because we have higher quality ingredients than a lot of our competitors. We have the last few years, we've had what's called a no-no list, and it's a bunch of, I don't want to say it, ingredients, preservatives, and things that we're like, we're not going to have that in our food, and which then causes our food to be more expensive because, hey, we need antibiotic-free chicken. Okay, well, these 1,000 people that do chicken, there's 7 that do antibiotic-free, right? Well, now we got to go to these folks, and it's way more expensive, right? So that's a piece of it. We're all in the same boat with labor, and so I know that our prices have gone up, but so has Chipotle's, and like everyone's in the same boat right now, and that's economics that I can't I can't talk about all that, but that's a piece of it too. And I know that every time something happens and we have to take a price increase for the ingredients, we, like most restaurants, take price to overcome that, right? So, okay, well, this chicken went up. Okay, so now your bagel just went from $1.39 to $1.41. Okay, well, now we did this, and now we did this. Now your bagel is $1.60. Okay, well, that's okay. But then if you multiply that by, hey, my sandwich used to be 11, and now it's 12, right? So we've gotten to a point where the customers are now like, nah, we're good. So we've seen that. We've had negative comps the last several months, which means year over year. So now, our sales for this cafe used to be 50 grand. Now they're 48, right? That's a negative swing. So one of the pieces of this is that in certain markets too, our prices are too high. The customer's like, nope, that's high enough. I don't need my strawberry poppy seed salad for $15. I'm good, thanks, right? So that's a part of it. It's a huge concern. And fortunately, we have new leadership again. And they are very conscious of this and are working because once you bring the price up, it's really freaking hard to bring it down, right? Like that never happens, and it's not just Panera, like it's retailers, it's everybody. So we're trying to figure this out to bring these prices down a little bit to hopefully gain back some customers, because it's a complaint that we get all the time, right? So, yeah.
Very cool. Well, I think we are approaching the end of class. So if there's not any urgent questions, why don't we all thank Stef for showing up.
You guys were great. And if you have questions, I don't think I can give Scott my information, but yeah, if you guys have questions or if you're working on a project and you want to bounce stuff off someone like me, man, send that email. That's cool, no problem.